Welcome back to the Skits and Giggles podcast. I am Pascal, chief instigator of this show and your host. I'm joined by my co-host and the resident engineer, the yin to my yang, the neeps to my tatties, Bryson. How's it going today, buddy?
Very well, Pascal. How are you doing?
I'm good. Well, today we are sitting down with Greg Jolliffe, a trail builder from Scotland. Greg is currently based in Switzerland and has most recently been involved in the building of the new Höckler Trail in Zurich. How's it going, Greg?
All good, guys. Thanks for having me on. It's nice to talk to you, and I'm excited for the chat.
All right. Well, also, we have another Friday night recording, and we have to stick to our habits and do a quick beverage check. Greg, what have you got?
Oh, I'm drinking a Zurich Trail's 10-year anniversary beer. One of the beers we've been drinking whilst constructing the trail here in Zurich. So, yeah, it's a nice one.
Very nice. Bryson, you got something exciting tonight? Acqua di Berna again?
No, not tonight. I went down another path, so I'm staring at in the horns of this Stone IPA, our iconic flagship IPA. So it's an American brew.
It's a West Coast IPA, no less. It's a very good one, actually.
It is. It's tasty.
Well, I am sticking to my Amundsen Ink and Dagger modern day IPA as well. So not from Norway, so not from the West Coast, but also a very good beer.
I'm an IPA fan myself.
There you go. So with that all of the way, let's just get down to some business and briefly do our spiel with the social and where you guys can find more information about the Skits and Giggles podcast. We are currently most active on Instagram, where you guys can skid right into our DMs and follow along at Skits and Giggles. And you can find our website with all the relevant links and info under the URL skitsandgiggles.com. Also, if you guys like what we're doing and want to know what's up, just give us a follow on Spotify. Hit subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever else you listen to great podcasts. Finally, if you have some time, you can ship in a cheeky top rating on your favorite platform, and that goes a long way to helping us reach more people like you. Well, seeing that we have an actual trail builder on the show tonight, we have a great listener question from our buddy JT again. And he says, the world is ending. What's the one trail you'd go out on? Greg, what are you saying to this?
The one trail I'd go out on. You know, it's probably a trail I haven't built yet, but I know it's coming, and I have something in the bag which is going to be, definitely something to go out on. Maybe. Or maybe it's just going to get some things started, but maybe it'll cure the apocalypse.
Okay, Bryson, you got something interesting?
Well, actually, recently I hit up the local loop here in Bern. So it's called the Bremner Loop, and it's in the Bremgartnerwald. It's almost completely flat route carpet, and at the north end there's like a little bit of a descent and another climb. And since it's the most recent trail that I've been sessioning, I would just give it balls and see how it goes, or see how many times I go OTV.
Oh, nice.
Anyways, it will be record breaking either way.
Okay, very good. Well, I'll be looking forward to when you send that flat root carpet. I'll be watching it, hopefully. Can you send me some POV? All right. Well, thanks for that. I think, I don't have anything special or insightful to say. I mean, I'm pretty transparent about my love for alpine riding. And JT here, he's also ridden some of my favorite trails with me. So I'm just going to recommend people check out Davos, particularly the area around Jakobshorn. And there's some fantastic trails from, pretty flowy and chill. But on the other side, towards Teufel side, there's some pretty spicy Black Diamond, old technical janky hiking trail stuff to be found. So yeah, a very nice zone, and I like to go there a lot in the summer, of course. Well, let's move on to the main part for the day. Greg, maybe to get us started, why don't you tell us what kind of mountain biker you are.
Okay, what sort of mountain biker am I? Wow, that is some question.
Of
Okay,
course, I stole it from Pink Bike. I thought it was fantastic.
Maybe I've heard that one before, but I haven't came up with an answer yet. So let's see, what sort of biker am I? So I would say I am quite under the radar. You wouldn't see, if you see me riding along a fire road, you would be like, okay, yeah, he's got a nice bike or whatever. But you wouldn't think much. And then maybe because I'm wearing a shirt and some jeans and some old Vans and have a big scruffy beard or whatever, that's not going to draw any attention. But yeah, full gas, send anything, try anything. But yeah, just balls to the wall, like Bryson said he would ride that last trail when it comes to riding.
Okay, well, but I mean, the mountain biker you are today is, of course, the sum of your riding experiences along the way. So what made you the mountain biker you are today?
What made me? So I would say I've done a lot of biking, and I've always been biking, and also building trails and designing and drawing, and biking's been a passion of mine since I can remember. And it all kind of started from when my granddad took me to a local woods that he lived at, and I must have been really young, not even able to ride a bike, and he just took me there, and there was people jumping and building thing with sticks, and from then on it's just been like, I want to do that. And my mum got me a bike and we hand painted it, and the first time I did a jump, I ran home and I was like, oh my god, I did a jump, I took air. I was just so excited doing shows in the garden for my family. I'd hand out little leaflets I drew up at school, like, come on round, I'm doing some shows, I'm jumping some ramps, and just like a real kid, like super stoked on biking, and I didn't want to do anything else. And yeah, that just escalated, and I started doing some downhill racing, and then I looked into, in Scotland we run a really, really cool program called BASE, and I managed to get a scholarship to do BASE, and BASE is actually run by or founded by Chris Ball and Rory Cunningham and Andy Barlow are all working there at BASE, and it's a really cool course that the college actually put out there, and I think it's the only one in the world where you can go to college and get a scholarship in sports science, and the sport being mountain biking, and train like a proper athlete and learn all the science behind it. And I was actually at college with Reece Wilson, who's now the world champ, and a few other boys are really, really doing some cool things on bikes, and that really taught me a lot of life lessons and how to ride a bike, I guess.
Well, what did go wrong? Because I mean, Reece is now the world champion, and showing off new sessions.
Yeah, well,
and you're just digging trail.
Do you know, I tried to be a racer, and there was always something in the background, and my creativity was always like carpentry and building things, and yeah, there was always been something in there, and it took me a while to go from racing downhill to then at BASE I understood, look, downhill's not for me, I'm going to try enduro, and then ended up racing in elite and enduro and got some podiums, but then I never got the big break to get a sponsorship deal, which actually didn't bother me. I was quite humbled, just riding my bike for fun, and then it just went from there, I guess.
Okay, when was that? When did you try actually in the EWS, when it was still back in Scotland, or
yeah, exactly.
Did you also travel?
I never managed to travel. It was all off my own back, and obviously I was at college at the time, so I was just paying for all and working in a little coffee shop called Number One Cafe in the valley, in the borders of Scotland and Innerleithen, and no, I never managed. I only raced a few home EWSs and like national elite level, but yeah, I really enjoyed it, and it actually came to an end because I went to work as an apprentice carpenter, because I realised, look, if I'm not going to be an enduro racer, maybe I'm going to try and get a trade and get a job which I can travel with, and carpentry was always a skill of mine. I'd always been very hands-on and creative and loved building things, and and that fit well for me to go and work as a carpenter and try and race bikes at the weekend, which eventually never really, the racing just went to the sideline, and I worked as a carpenter. And then one day I just like snapped, and I was like, I can't do this. I need to go and have some fun again and ride some bikes. And I shot PK a DM on Instagram, and he runs Joyride in Whistler, and he was like, dude, if you can get out here, you've got all the necessary skills that we need. And he gave me a break, and I went out and built a Joyride, and like from working as a carpenter, which, don't get me wrong, was awesome, and I learnt a lot, and those skills took me to Joyride. If I wasn't a carpenter, they wouldn't have had me on, or if I couldn't run a machine from working on the building sites, they probably wouldn't have had the opportunity to go to Joyride. And then I was just in Dream World in Whistler building the pinnacle of slopestyle course, and like what I'd looked up to, and hanging about with the builders of who I'd been looking at. And yeah, and then my riding just stepped into another gear. I went from an enduro racer on like a stump jumper with 150 forks and high-rise bars to riding in ripped jeans and shredding with all the boys, and like, yeah, just getting in some insane trains and with some really cool pro riders in Whistler. And yeah, just my riding became very rounded, and I wouldn't say I have a certain discipline, and riding in jeans and a shirt, and give me any bike and I can probably send it.
All right. Well, I mean, how long did you spend in Whistler?
So I was in Whistler for 2 seasons, and 2
wow.
years actually. So I spent the winter as well. In the winter I continued as a carpenter, building houses, and funny enough, the guy I worked for, Chris Adario, was a mountain biker too, and he was super stoked. And whenever there was a big pow day, we'd go snowboarding in the winter, which is also a fond hobby of mine. But yeah, and Whistler, working for PK and hanging out with those guys, was just like I was in a dream world. And then COVID came round the corner, and I had to come back to Scotland, and that also opened up some opportunities. I was a little bit sad, but once I got into some other things, I knew that Whistler was just the start of my journey in biking and building.
Well, yeah, I mean, it sounds like a fantastic start into that in that space. So you started building for Joyride, and now, as we said in the intro, you finished kind of the Höckler Trail, the new project that has just been completed here in Zurich. But between those two projects, there's obviously a couple of different steps. So how did you get into the more formal trail building that you're doing now?
Like I said, and it kind of was the step, just by sure coincidence or luck or whatever, that PK just gave me the chance to come out. And if he said, if you can get out here, then you've got a job. And that was like a dream of mine, to be a full-time trail builder since I was a little boy. And from school I would always draw in my jotters and design tracks, and in the parents' meetings my teachers were like, if he was as good at maths as he was good at drawing bike trails, he would be the top student. Like, I was just drawing, and that was just my creative outlet, was just designing bike trails, and from the beginning. And then I got my break with Joyride for sure, and that's such a big name. And when I came back to Scotland over coronavirus, I got involved with a film company called Cut Media.
Where have we seen some of Cut Media's work?
Cut Media was working with mostly with Danny McCaskill there. Stu Thompson was running Cut MTB, which is like a racing team, and Joe Barnes was involved back in the day, and he's running now a really cool film company. And they got me on board when I was back in Scotland during the first lockdown to do a really cool film project with Ollie Wilkins and Ben Deacon. And they said to me, look, you've been out in Whistler, you've built some cool stuff, we trust you, can you build us a cool trail to shoot a video? And I was like, that's perfect, that's exactly what I want to do. I reached out to a local farmer and said to him, look, can we build something in your field? And funny enough, he was stoked on it, and I hired his machine from him, and I went crazy for 3 weeks and built a crazy jump line in a field, and it looks like it was just perfect, and nice big jumps. And now that video with Ollie Wilkins has got 1.5 million views, and that was just a crazy one. And during that project, my friend Max, who I made this connection in Whistler, and he's now living in Geneva and working for Velo Solutions, got me involved with Velo Solutions and said, Greg, we need you out here for this project on the Hochler Trail in Zurich, and it sounds like a really cool project. And he knew that it was going to be a dream team working back with Max again. He's a super good machine operator. We call him Supreme Maxime, and in the crew on the Hochler we did. And yeah, he's a good guy to work with, and that connection was already made from Whistler, like I said. But yeah, it just kind of I just kind of fell into it. It was where I'm meant to be, and all my friends and family say, "Look, Greg, you're in a place where you're actually meant to be there. Like this is for you." And from my upbringing and everything, it's all been like a bit of a dream, and I'm like definitely living the dream at times, and feeling blessed when I'm in the forest building a crazy berm or really spending some time making something look nice. And yes, I don't take it for granted.
So you're in your element, and
Absolutely.
Cut Media recognize this.
Yes.
They come to you, or you guys have a talk, and you say, "Okay, we're going to build something." How does that go down? Like, you decide how long you want to make this track, what features you want to have it, and what tricks that they're going to pull off of it, or do you collaborate with the athletes as well, or what goes through?
There is always that sort of collaboration, but for that individual project with Cut Media, they had a really interesting idea that never been done before. They wanted to loop the trail so it looked like an endless loop. The end was the start. So I went scouting through fields and walking for miles on end just to find a location which looked like the start and the finish, so that when they got to the bottom, it was the start and they could just loop it. And I don't know if you've seen it, it's the SAM2 Focus Bikes edit for the e-bikes, and their whole idea was like, you don't have to worry about the ups, it's always down, you can enjoy the downhills. And so that was really unique. The trail needed to be about 30 to 45 seconds to do the 3 runs and the 3 cuts, all within the time frame for advertising. So there was a lot of aspects that came into that, but they just said to me, build something cool, we trust you, and this is what we need. And it worked out, and they trusted me, and they were stoked on the end project, and so was I. And yeah, but now that's gone. We destroyed it. So,
what was your standout feature for that build?
I really liked the shark fin. Like, it was an opposite shark fin. It was a kicker into a shark fin, and then you really had to like pop off this big step down into another big step up in this valley. But it was also all getting filmed in one shot, so we had to control the speed. We couldn't have them going too fast. So that section, the camera had to run away and be ahead of them so that they would catch up and slow down. So we were always playing with the speed. But I would say that section of the 3 jumps was a key section, and that really made the whole trail.
But when you work for Joyride, I mean, is that I believe the Crankworx slopestyle courses, they are pretty much set, or do you have any degrees of freedom that you can use to build?
Oh yeah, like Whistler is a very unique one because the course gets destroyed every year because it's a ski slope. So the only thing that becomes the same is the start drop, and that gives us very unique opportunities to build some really unique things. And because my carpentry background, I did a lot, or the majority of the woodwork, working with Wiper, who was the chief of the Joyride, of the Boneyard. He would build everything, and he'd been doing it for years. So we worked together, and I was running mostly the woodworking side of things and the boner log and all those things. But yeah, like last year, we really changed up the course and made it a different route to how it was, and it's totally up to us and the guys on the ground to shape it and make it perfect. And I really learned a lot there about how to really shape a good trail and what makes some things work. And you would think we measure things and there's a science behind it, but it's just gut feeling, and it's just these guys know that that's going to work before they even hit it. And I'm slowly getting to that level where I can look at a jump and understand that that's going to work. And working with different soils and materials, and you know how hard it is. And yeah, like there's a lot of variables, but it's completely go where you like, and that's the beauty of the boneyard in Whistler. And I learned, like I said, I learned so much from being there, and that created me into the trail builder that I am now.
Okay, but yeah, so far, I mean, it's now a couple of years of trail building. What is your personal highlight so far? Which one are you the most proud of?
Wow. So the Hawker Trail is definitely something I'm really, really proud of because it's the most recent. Also Joyride, like I'm never going to forget that. But the film project for Cut Media, also a crazy highlight. It's difficult to put my finger on one because they're different, but on their own way. And yeah, I would say I'm still waiting for that. There's going to be something in the pipeline which is going to be the highlight of, or well, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that
Right.
one.
You already have a trail that's called after you, so
Oh yes,
I think you eternalized yourself.
Yeah, for sure. So at base, that's also kind of where it started, and some of the tracks got used in races. And yeah, we when we weren't riding or training in the gym, and we'd be in the woods building some illegal trails, which are now some of the most popular trails in the valley of Innerleithen, where we all studied and did our practical side of the base program. So yeah.
I mean, that's obviously something well, base of course is now pretty famous. Of course, Chris Ball is very famous, Lord Ball
Man.
of the Enduro.
Yeah.
But the whole trail building scene in Scotland, I think, is very interesting. We've talked about it a little bit before we started recording. Is you just mentioned it that it used to be pretty much illegal, unsanctioned trails, and now there's a bit more infrastructure around it. So maybe can you talk a little bit about how that works in Scotland?
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of it all started from just people going into the hills and building something else and making little lines in between the established trails and then going into the woods and building stuff. But there's always a bit of a grey area when you're doing that because the land's owned by the Queen, and as we joke around and we say that the Queen loves biking, and it's the same in Canada, but now more charities and associations are popping up, and they're taking care of the trails and putting a proper name and making sure that they're sustainable and legalising it all, and they're the governing bodies who are approaching the commissions, the forestry commissions, and saying, okay, these trails can stay. There's no problem to have these people in the forests, and they're not causing any hazards, they're actually helping the forestry guys by making a route in to understand what's going on, and people become more aware, and it's better with the trails than it is destroying them and fighting each other. But
Absolutely.
there's good charities and stuff all coming into play now, and Scotland's starting to understand that.
When you talk about sustainability of trails, right? Of course, sustainability is a big buzzword at this stage in the world.
Oh yes.
And of course, the sustainability always means different things in different contexts. So, what does sustainability mean in the context of a trail?
So I would say, obviously, trails are built with mostly natural materials, and I would like to think that the best way to build a trail is to use your materials, what you have around in your local vicinity, not bringing down special gravel that's imported or anything like that, because that's not going to help the wildlife or the ground or anything. And but building sustainably is also using materials that aren't going to wash away. Like, you don't want to use your topsoil or your humus or your plants, or you want to get that stuff away and really make sure the water has a way to go. The thing I'm always working towards is having the water escape, or have an exit strategy for the water. Stagnant water is the thing that destroys trails, and even if the water's on the trail, as long as it's moving, that's one of the things that we learned. As long as it's moving and it's not staying in one spot, then the trail will last a lot longer, because water isn't actually a bad thing. You want water to keep the trail compact, and you don't want it to be too dry, and keeping it sustainable. And it's also knowledge as well. People need to understand and understand when to ride the trails and when to not ride the trails, and understand the locals as well. It's all, yeah.
That brings up a question from my side, because you have the old adage that says, when the trails are wet, don't ride them. You're gonna destroy them. And of course, it doesn't apply to every trail.
It doesn't.
Now, how much does that apply to the Huckler Trail with your advanced knowledge and techniques of building?
So the Huckler Trail was really, really clay material, and that obviously doesn't react well with water. It just becomes like a skating rink. But when you go to some other resorts, higher alpine stuff that you love to ride, Pascal, is more rocky and gravelly, and those sort of things come alive when it's wet. You want to ride that stuff when it's wet, because it just becomes grippy and stuff like that. And it's you really have to work with the elements of the soil, and that's one thing as a trail builder. Like, you have to work with what you're given, and I don't want to bring in too much gravel or rocks from around, and I want to try and use the soil as best as we can, and knowledge of the people as well is also a good thing. But you're always going to get people who go and ride and stuff, but we try to build stuff which you can ride in all conditions, because it's mountain biking at the end of the day. You need to get muddy, you need to slide around, and if you come out of the bottom of the trail with mud all down your back, you've had a ride out for sure.
That's what it's about.
Yes, it is mountain biking, so you can't go too precise, but really learning the dirt jump style of things and how they shape, and how they religiously don't ride when it's wet, and religiously take care of the jumps when it's dry, is something which is definitely I take to building even enduro trails or natural sections. It's a skill which is you can use across the board to keeping trails sustainable for sure.
So, taking the dirt jump analogy as an example, let's say, it rains. We got a couple of days of rain in Zurich, and, we've got some guys riding through because maybe it's their only day they can ride, forgiven for sure. Are we going to see you back on the Huckler, like shaping a little bit, putting a little bit of maintenance in? How's that going to work out?
Absolutely. Although the project is over and the Vela Solutions and us guys are out of there now and we've moved on, that I don't want to, for a project like that, for me, I can't just get up and leave. That's always going to be part of me now, because I've been there from the start to the finish. So I'm going to go back and help out the guys and volunteer my time to keep the trail going, because I love to ride that trail. That trail's got elements in there that even an experienced, like it's an expert trail, it's supposed to challenge everyone, and there's gaps and there's jumps and there's stuff in there that I've not hit yet, and there's some lines, and it's going to keep me going back, and I don't want to just run away and do away with the money or whatever. It's not about that for me. I'm doing it for the love. I want to build a nice trail and show my face and be a part of it, and I wish I could have been here for longer to understand more of the history, and maybe I might have done some things the other way around or whatever if I'd known more. But I think we've done the best that we could with the situation, and we've gave the Zurich guys a really nice trail that we're super stoked about, and I wouldn't change anything myself.
Well, if you stick around a little bit, I'm sure you'll learn a little bit more about Zurich and the riding culture.
Yes.
In fact, I guess while you were on the trail building, you must have run into some of the local rippers.
Oh, yes.
What's the kind of feedback you got? Of course, they're going to be, super gelled up because, they're riding basically a Zurich version of a joyride course. But
of course,
what do they say?
Like, the feedback is, you're always going to get some controversial feedback, but the 99% of the feedback has been awesome. The people come down to the bottom of the trail and they're like, dude, this is insane. People just want to keep coming back because they've not hit a line, they've not hit the road gap, they've not hit this. And this trail is, at first you can roll down it and you can hit everything and say, okay, I've done that trail. But if an experienced rider can look at the trail and be like, okay, right, you can jump this to there, oh my God, you can jump that to here, it's just a really playful trail with a lot of hidden lines, and yeah, the feedback has been really good on that side of things, and it's aimed at the good riders, and the good riders are giving us really positive feedback and saying that things work really smoothly, and yeah, they're really enjoying it, which is awesome for me to hear. And sometimes I can't even express how good it makes me feel when I see people, or even when I've been working there, I've been hearing people scream on the way down, like, "Oh my God, that trail's amazing," or whatever, and it just keeps that fire going inside me to build a really nice trail. And I'm a rider myself, of course, so I want to do a good job and build a nice trail because I'll be riding it as well. And I want to, like I said, I don't want to just run away, and I want to show face and help the guys out and show them how we did it.
Maybe you want to highlight one of the most difficult portions of the trail to develop or to build rather than to ride.
So most of the trail was machine built, but the second section halfway down was quite steep, and obviously we couldn't take a machine into there to do the heavy lifting. So a lot of that was heavy lifting by hand, and we run into water issues and problems with the ground, and yeah, it was a technical section. It ate up a lot of time because it was all brought in by hand, and the wooden bridges, carpentry stuff takes typically a lot longer to build, and I was the solo carpenter there, and I just had a little bit of help here and there when it was needed. So it was, yeah, the middle section, I like to call it the 3 bridges section because, yeah, there's 3 bridges. And but that was all by hand, and we wanted to give the guys something which was natural and which resembled the Harikiri style of trail, which is natural and roots and loam, and has a really technical style, and yeah, which that's not so sustainable as a machine built trail, but everybody loves to ride a natural section which is cut up and is going to change over time.
Well, that's actually something I'm really interested in, because we've already touched on the sustainability issue of trails, and with the trail for advanced riders or expert riders, as you called it, is of course, those are typically not very much reinforced. They are changing all the time. They are very natural. They are, the people are building some more, and there's erosion and stuff like that. So, how do you manage that on a trail project like this?
So the good thing about this trail project was that we were working with Zuri Trails, and Zuri Trails are going to have the guys there and some volunteers dedicate their time to take care of the trail, and in the past we've done some digging days and we've brought people in, and some of the last sections of the trail are all by volunteers, all hand built, and we worked with the volunteers to build them and educate them, and that's why I'd like to volunteer my time to keep going back, to just keep the education going and passing through. And also it teaches me as well, just through teaching, and then I can, then the people can better understand of how it's built and why we built it that way and why things are shaped like that. And creating the knowledge and sharing the knowledge is also a really good way to keep the sustainability of trails. And obviously the Zuri Trails guys who did all the planning from the start are dedicated to do the maintenance and do the follow-up, and yeah, those guys are going to keep it going.
Yeah. And we had, one of our first episodes was with Robin Schaub, and apart from working at ONSA at the time, he's also very involved in the local trail building community. And what I found one of the most interesting insights is that on one of their trail building projects that they built, the bike trail Allersheim, I don't know if you've heard or seen it before, but one of the interesting things I thought was that they actually installed a traffic measurement system. So they know exactly, how many people are on the trail, how many are using it. They can use that data to, as evidence for future trail projects, etc. Because again, it's always easier to convince with evidence than it is with hearsay.
Exactly.
Is there also something like this in the new Höckler trails? Do you have a feeling for what kind of traffic this trail is getting, or?
Absolutely. The Zuri Trail guys estimated that there'd be about 20,000 rides a year, but I think we're already thinking there's going to be more, which initially I didn't anticipate, but it's awesome to see that. But yes, there's actually a trail counter as well on the trail, so we've been looking at the numbers, and because we've gradually opened up the sections over time, we've been understanding what the traffic is like and when they ride, and the typical riding times of the people, for sure. It's obviously good data to look at and to understand what sort of traffic the trail's going to get and how that's going to impact the development of it over time.
Oh yeah, I mean, and for you as Velo Solutions or as a trail builder, it's some interesting data to correlate with trail erosion, with the soil, with how stuff is developing, how the woodwork is holding up, etc. Right? So
yeah, for sure. And we can, over time, we'll be able to. I don't actually know who's got the data. Maybe it's Zuri Trails, but yeah. We'll definitely be able to correlate that number and understand and look back and see, okay, so that's how many riders have been on it, and we'll learn from that and be able to maybe do something different in the future with it. And it's always good to look at the data, but sometimes you just have to go by feel and really trust your instinct and build what you feel like you can build. And when you're working with the elements, in the snow, in the rain, you just have to, that's when you really know what to build and what you can get away with. And that's why it was a good time to build in the fall last year to start the project when the ground was really wet, because then we see all the problems and we minimise what problems will occur in the future.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, it's personally, I'm interested to see how just the general traffic on Uetliberg, which of course is one of the closest riding zones for Zurich city. How that is going to develop over the next couple of months, especially during the summer, and if it's going to take away, how much of the traffic it's going to take away from the first one, the antenna trail, and how many are actually going to use the new Höckler trail. So again, it's interesting. I'm really curious to see how it's developing.
Yeah. I'll need to find out who's got the numbers so we can share them with you guys.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Ooh, dada.
Of course, this all, sounds very, very positive so far. And but have you also heard some negatives, some kind of concerns?
There's always concerns, and people are always going to ask and question, well, what's going to happen? How's it going to be sustainable? And is this going to be worn away? And yeah, you just have to back those up with your reasons why and why we've built it such in a certain way. But yeah, the majority of the guys have been super stoked, and the building of the trail was awesome. We worked with some really nice people. The forestry guy, Corsine, was super helpful and gave us everything we needed, and the planning was awesome. And Dave and the guys and the guys at Zuri Trails who put in all that work behind the scenes and put in all those years to build it and plan it is going to pay off. And yeah, the guys who are maybe have a little grudge and say it's a gravel road or say these things, and yeah, those things are gonna change over time, and we've built it a certain way so that it can last as long as it can possibly do and hold up to all these riders.
Well, I did actually put that in my notes. The new Höckler Trail is a glorified gravel road with a few gnarly features in the jump line. Changed my mind.
Oh man. It is. There is definitely gravel in there. I'm going to tell you, there's gravel. There has to be gravel so that it can stay where it is, and the shapes don't fall away over time. But although the Uetliberg is mostly clay, clay's a great thing to work with, because when it dries and sets up, it's not going to go anywhere. Like it's a solid structure, but obviously, like we touched on, in the wet, it becomes pretty difficult to ride, and that's why most of the sections are covered in gravel, and where the sections that we felt that you could maybe get away with not so much gravel and a little bit of rock here and there and kept it natural, that's where we did it, where the trees got tighter and the ground got steeper, so the water would always be moving. and it would dry up fast. It might not be rideable for one day, the next day it will be. So yeah.
I think one of the burning questions is it's really close to an ecologically sensitive area, if not
Absolutely.
partway through. Yeah, what's your opinion on how to manage those kinds of topics?
So like I touched on before, we worked well with the forestry guy, and obviously the planning stage took so long. It maybe took 5 or 6 years, and then 2 years, including the 2 years with Velo Solutions, to really get things moving. And the numerous times the guys hiked up and down to make sure they weren't in and out, that really dictated where the trail needed to go as well. So we were also working with those factors. And when I'm digging a trail, I'm always looking for the water, the wildlife, and the trees in the surrounding areas. I want to build a cool trail for the riders too, but I do like to look at the bigger picture and make sure it's going to work for other things, and we're not going to disrupt any other habitats. And if we do run into an issue like that, we'll come together and we'll make a decision. And sometimes we will change the line, and those decisions were made on the Hawklaw Trail to avoid wet areas and to avoid areas where there was more precious trees to be looked after. But it didn't really, it almost changed the trail for better, because we don't want to go into those wet areas anyway.
Yeah, I'm with your insight, and of course the organization of Zuri Trails. I'm sure that those sensitive areas are going to be well taken care of.
Absolutely. Yep. And sadly, the Harikiri Trail is now being closed, which is a shame. But I hope the riders are going to go and ride the new trail and enjoy it. And yeah, the spirit and the history of the Uetliberg will carry on, and I hope the people aren't upset for too long, and they can find these new gaps and find the fun in the new trail.
Absolutely. Of course, that's some future sound, and speaking of the future, what does your future hold? Are you gonna stick around in Switzerland? I understand you're with Velo Solutions. Are you just banging out more trails, more pump tracks, more everything?
Yeah. For me, I'm just kind of living in the moment, and if something else pops up, I'll go and do it. But I definitely have an ambition, and my ambition at the moment, and I've been telling a lot of people and everyone I speak to, and I'm pretty driven towards building a little off-grid cabin back in Scotland or somewhere like that, and just building like a crazy jump line, or not even a jump line, just like a crazy trail and stuff like that. That's like an ambition of mine. If Corona was to continue and it was just like the Corona was the new normal, I would go and do that. But now that things are maybe changing and travel is becoming more open again, or hopefully is going to be, then yeah, I'm only young, so maybe I'll keep traveling and keep gaining skills. And yeah, I really want to master this as a trail builder, and I'm just on the start of my journey here. So I'm excited to see what it has, and yeah, there's definitely going to be some cool projects, I hope, at least. Yeah, I feel like I've got it in me to build something nice.
But what kind of zones are you interested in the most to further your skills, right? So you've worked in Whistler, you worked in Scotland, you worked here, but there is obviously, certainly in Europe on the mainland, there is very, very many different zones where there's very different trail building cultures. I'm thinking of Italy, France, Spain, and one of my personal favorites is Portugal. Madeira, the mountain bike paradise island in the middle of the Atlantic. So what kind of zones are you interested in the most for yourself?
Yeah, obviously those zones are like right up there for me, but traveling further afield like Australia or New Zealand is also up there, and some of the connections I made in Whistler, the guys are out there in New Zealand, like Phil McLean and Kenny Day, who's working for Dirt Art in Australia. And like sometimes I see that Dirt Art are looking for guys, and maybe I'm going to write them an email one day and say, I'll come out, I know Kenny, let's build some trails, and I think my CV is growing quite quickly with these projects, and I'll have the opportunity to maybe do those things, which is really nice. And of course I'm going to take them if I can get it, and I'd be stupid not to go out and travel and build and and stuff like that. But I just want to do it for the love of it. I don't want to. For me, I don't. It doesn't matter about what. I just want to put all my effort into it and be there from the start to the finish. And it's nice that Velo Solutions are giving me the opportunity to do a lot more trail projects and only a few pump tracks here and there, which is I cherish that, and I appreciate it. And I'm definitely sticking around this summer, but I can't tell you where I'll be next summer. But probably doing something else.
Okay. Well, you are now based in Switzerland, and this is a podcast based in Switzerland, and we like to talk about riding in Switzerland. So I do hope you had some chance already, apart from the only Hekla Trail, to ride a little bit in your current home. So what were your impressions so far?
It's awesome. It's a really nice country, the hills and the Alps, and yeah, Canada was like my pinnacle to go to, and then Switzerland was definitely up there on the list, like maybe not second, but definitely up there on the list. So I'm stoked, but obviously I've not been here for long, and I've devoted all my time to being on that hill and being up in the woods of the Uetliberg, and I've been totally fine with that. But obviously I want to go and explore and ride some of the big routes, like the Verbier to Zermatt route is on my list for this summer, and do a lot more exploring. But yeah, realistically, I've not actually done much riding here, which I've ridden some nice dirt jump spots and stuff like that with some of the guys. But yeah, the riding is yet to come for me here.
We definitely have to put an alumni ride together at some stage, Bryson.
It's happening.
It's happening.
Corona be damned.
Exactly. I think at this stage we have too many people for our alumni ride.
It's gonna have to be 2 rides, really.
Exactly. We have to make 2. Oh, dang.
The invite's in the mail, Greg.
All right. Well, you have some plans for Switzerland, but apart from Whistler, you have ridden a lot. But what else has been the most impressive riding you've done so far, or the most interesting zones you've ridden so far?
So far, as in my time I've spent here, or my time
just generally in your lifetime as a mountain biker. What made you the mountain biker?
Oh man, the trails in Scotland for sure. The trails there are just insane, and I can't highlight enough for the people to go. And if you love enduro and love like riding all kinds of trails and more natural hand built stuff, you need to go to Scotland. And I am actually really missing Scotland, and I'm always watching the base Instagram videos and the dirt school and all my friends back in Scotland, and I would say that that's the best place, and I'm missing it a lot, and I want to go back and ride there with everyone. So I would recommend that to anyone, to go and ride in Scotland.
Oh well, maybe you should make a return to enduro racing in beginning of October when the EWS returns to Innerleithen.
Yeah, maybe I should. Maybe I'll need to speak to the guys and get out there. For sure, it would be awesome.
Absolutely. Well, maybe we can team up and go to your number one cafe or whatever it was called.
Oh yes, Craig and Emma will be delighted to see me. They're such a funny bunch in there, and yeah, Ennis and the guys who all live there and who I went to college with they're always shouting and hollering and saying, "Come on back out, come riding. I want to go riding with you again." So I think we'd get a warm welcome. I'd be a good guy to know for sure, Pascal. That's for sure. If you came to Innerleithen or to Scotland,
Very good. I might take you up on that. We do have some family out there, so maybe I can sneak in a little bike trip on the next family visit.
Yeah, you just need to make sure I'm there and not in some woods building something crazy.
Exactly, off grid in your cabin.
Oh man, that's it. That's a dream. That's also a nice dream.
Scotland and basically the whole of UK, like Surrey Hills and all those places, have always been on my list since I was even living in Canada. I was seeing those videos from
Brendan Faircloth, Ollie Wilkins, those guys.
Exactly. It just like they cut the turns into the hill themselves. I'm just why wouldn't I try that? Like, of course.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm actually also looking forward to getting out there. That sounds like
it's a good time.
Yeah,
it's a good time.
Well, we're getting towards the end of our time here, so let's just go to our closeout question, if that's okay. We have a couple of those, and we like to go through with all of our guests. And the first one is tell us a little bit about not only about you as a mountain biker, but tell us about that first bike that got you really stoked about riding.
Wow. So I touched on it before, but it was definitely that green monkey bike that me and my mum painted together, and I did my first send. I first got air on it, and I didn't even take the bike home. I just left the bike and ran. I was that stoked. I just like, oh my God, I jumped this thing. So yeah, that would be the first bike that got me stoked on riding.
Very nice. Imagine you're Harry Skidini and you're a bike magician extraordinaire. And you can make riding a bike more awesome for anyone by the stroke of a magic dropper post. What would you do?
Wow. Yep, so I would make... Obviously, I'm a trail builder, and that's where my passion lies, so I've got to do something with trails, right? So yeah, I would grant everybody's wish for their dream trail to be accessible and sustainable for everyone. And everyone can enjoy it. There's the fire pits, and there's the viewing platforms, and it's just like, yeah, the dreams are coming true for everyone, and yeah, something along those lines. Dream trails for everyone.
Boom. Number 3. Okay, so let's put yourself in the situation. You're going to shrink yourself down to the size of somewhere between a grain of sand and an ant.
Yeah.
And you are looking up at the berm. And you see some trail riders coming down, some steezy jeezies. And they're just like slicing the trail up. From your perspective and your opinion, what makes a great skid?
What makes a great skid? A great skid is one where you're like completely out of control and your both wheels are locked up and the gravel's going everywhere or whatever it is you're riding, and then you just let off at the last minute and just like, wow, in the turn. The skid and that fear on your buddy's face, and you can just feel it from your gut. You're like, oh my God. And then you just make it and you just lose your beans. Like you said, the tin of beans explodes and you're just like, oh my God, you survived. That is the skid that just fires me up and makes you want to do one.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah, completely locked up. Both brakes.
Nice. Well, Greg, thanks so much for your time and sitting down with us tonight. This was really, really cool. If listeners have any questions or want to learn more about you and your work, where can they find you?
So mostly I'm posting all my stuff on Insta. I'm always updating my little stories on when I'm in the woods, and I like to do that stuff just for my own thing, because it's like, oh, I like to look back and see the photos of how it developed as well. And yeah, I like to share those things with people. So it's just Greg Jolliffe on Instagram. Yeah, but I'm also on Facebook and Pink Bike, and I actually posted like a GoPro preview of the Hockler Trail on Pink Bike and did some photos and a little write-up. And I used to like doing that stuff for the racing and writing blogs and things, just as like a little reminder and memory. Even if only a few people see it, it's still something for me to look at to remind myself. So Pink Bike it's all Greg Jolliffe.
All right, sweet. We'll have to put that up in the show notes, and so people can find it. And so hopefully a couple more people, so maybe 2 or 3, are reading it instead of 1 or 2. And yeah. So, well, thanks again. This was really cool. And yeah, well, talk to you soon, hopefully in person.
Hopefully,
Bryson?
yeah. Let's go biking.
Greg, it was a true pleasure.
It was a pleasure.
Man, it was super nice to hang out with you guys. Cool guys. Cheers.
All right,
Thanks for letting me tell a little bit of my story.
Absolutely. Cheers.
See you on the trails.
See ya.